Hey guys, welcome back to the Cuse Quarter. If this is your first time watching, thanks for joining us. Syracuse is playing Central Michigan this week. Central Michigan is 2-0. They just went on the road against Kansas. How did they do it?
Well, I'll tell you what, they have a great quarterback named Shane Morris. Another lefty that Syracuse is going to have to face. Central Michigan 2-0. Last game, Morris throwing for over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, going 28 for 37, and a big win against Kansas.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how Syracuse adjusts, going against another lefty quarterback, another spread offense that likes to throw the ball. Last week we saw them get a little bit tired at the end of the game, which is weird to see, especially at home in the dome. But
it was hot.
Yeah, especially with Coach Berry saying after the game.
It was hot.
But definitely got to see the secondary improve, make it through the entire game. Hopefully they can actually make plays of their own. I'd like to see some more interceptions from, our corners and safeties rather than linebackers. But should be a good game, good matchup.
Yeah, and like you were saying, Morris, he had a monster game against Kansas. 467 yards, 5 touchdowns, and his offensive line stepped up. They have a senior laden offensive line, and with the power 7 that Syracuse has, I think that's going to be a good matchup. If the Orange can get to Morris, it'll be a good game.
Morris is a big guy. He's a big guy. He reminds me a lot of Brent Stockstill, who had a great game last Saturday.
I think we're all a little surprised when Syracuse lost against Middle Tennessee this past week.
They were said
the dome was hot.
Oh, my goodness.
It was too hot. I mean, they started the game down 2-0 off the safety.
I don't think surprised is the word. I'm more disappointed, if anything, because I think this is a game that we all expected Syracuse to win, here on this desk and even out there as a fan base. Because games like these, you want to be able to build some consistency. We saw a lot of unchecked boxes from Central Connecticut State last week, and a lot of those boxes were exposed against Middle Tennessee State. And that's an issue, because teams like this, you want to build a little bit of consistency. You want to show that you can throw the ball, run the ball, stop teams on defense, and establish yourselves. And we didn't get that establishment. And unfortunately, now they're going back to the drawing board, trying to figure out how they can win against a team like Central Michigan.
And you know what? And the schedule's only going to get harder. I mean, we got to focus. They're playing Central Michigan. They're not a Conference USA team. They're a MAC team. They just played Kansas. They had a scrappy win against an FCS team, URI. But then they got at LSU, at NC State, home against Pitt, and then home against Clemson.
It's not getting easier. It's not getting easier for the Orange.
Yeah, they have some big games coming up. So how important is this win?
You want to be able to establish a little bit of consistency. You know what I mean? You want to be able to go ahead and get those 3 wins. Because the first 3 games of the season, I think most people expected Syracuse to win. And you hope that they could win those games because they knew that they had a difficult schedule. Number 1 most difficult schedule in the country. You want to be able to win these games because going into the ACC play, it's going to be hard to find wins, and they struggle to win on the road, according to last season. And losing games like this is just an issue. It's just a problem for me, at least. I thought it was poor execution on both sides of the ball.
It would have been a lot more comfortable going into Central Michigan with an undefeated record. Maybe take this one. There you go. You're going down to Baton Rouge, 3-0.
Well, 2 years ago, Syracuse beat Central Michigan by 2 points. So Central Michigan is probably ready for revenge.
Didn't you play in that game?
I did.
You did play in that game. You
I
did.
You played in that game.
And the biggest thing was we were not prepared for their quarterback. They had an NFL quarterback. His name doesn't need to be mentioned. And they executed. And that was the biggest thing that I think this Syracuse team needs to figure out how to do. Central Michigan, they're doing an excellent job throwing the ball. Again, Shane Morris throwing for over 400 yards last week, 5 touchdowns. It's going to be on the secondary to find a way to help this team win a game. You don't know what we're going to get from Syracuse's offense this week. The offensive line did struggle. They struggled last week. Again, you don't know what we're going to get. So need to see this defense step up. Need to see the secondary make some plays next week.
And don't forget who's playing the end for Central Michigan is Mitch Stanizek. Mitch Stanizek is the guy who knocked Dungey out of the game 2 years ago.
Dirty.
It was a dirty hit. Dungey already threw the ball, and I believe it was a touchdown play. He was wrapped by the legs, and Stanizek came way after the throw, hit him right in the head. He actually got ejected and was ejected from the game for targeting. And he missed a lot of last season, Stanizek. He's number 44, the D-end for the Chippewas, due to a lot of injuries. But he's going to come back, and I think Dungey's going to know who's coming on his blind side his playing side. And both Stanizek and Dungey are going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder, knowing who's across from them.
Good thing for the Orange, though, that game. pulled it out in overtime, 30-27. So hopefully this one doesn't go to overtime, but maybe we can blow them out a little bit.
Well, Central Michigan likes to rush the quarterback, and so they're going to be after Dungy. And he had a lot of hits last week.
Oh, he went down. Started the second half. He was getting banged around a little bit. He got sidelined. He was seen on the field grabbing his knee, and then Mahoney came in for a few plays.
Yeah,
did his job.
It was a result of a targeting play, though. That was a situation where it was clear that
Last week?
Not played under Coach Schaefer, and the biggest thing is getting after the quarterback and hitting him. He probably emphasized to his defensive line, his linebackers, get that quarterback on the ground. Schaefer used to tell us all the time, squeeze him, drive his shoulder into the grounds. And we saw a lot of that last week between Middle Tennessee State and Syracuse. He's got to be able to protect Eric Dungy back at center, because if he's rushing around trying to find receivers and trying to run the ball, that's not good for Syracuse's offense. We saw it because he wasn't hitting a lot of hurt fields.
And what did we say last week? We said Syracuse's offensive line was going to have to play a really great game. And this week, Central Michigan is, as you said, Monica, is a very aggressive defense. They're going to rush their front seven, especially on third down. So Dungy's going to have to get the ball out quick. They're going to see a similar defense to what they saw against Middle Tennessee, a very aggressive, very fast defense. And Dungy's going to have to look for Phillips and Ish on the perimeter in those quick game routes.
I mean, I think Ish is going to be a big factor. I mean, last game, 14 grabs, 116 yards, tied the single game record for receptions. You need a big game out of it. You do.
No, keep that same consistency when they're constantly throwing him the ball.
You know what? I think that their number one receiver and his production is actually built into the offense at this point. We saw last year Ambed Atawa go for tons of records, right? Mm-hmm. And now we see Steve Ishmael step into that same role, and he's putting up the same numbers. And I don't think it had. And crazy part though is I thought Steve Ishmael was a better receiver than Ambed last year as far as talent level. Mm-hmm. So I was surprised to see that he wasn't the actual number one guy. Mm-hmm. But now that he's stepping into that role, I think he's getting a lot of catches, a lot of targets, a lot of yards, which is excellent to see, but no touchdowns. And that's a matter of just making this offense more efficient. We got to see some more touchdowns rather than field goals next week.
And John, I know you were mentioning it in our meeting earlier today. Dungy has a problem looking at one receiver and one receiver only, and whether it's Ish or Phillips. I mean, he does eye down one receiver. Granted, and when you're playing a certain defense, you're going to look at one receiver. But what we were talking about is Phillips is going to have an impact.
Do you think that's a result of the blitz last week, though?
Yeah. Protection up front. You need protection up front. He has his eyes on his intended receiver. He's got a guy he wants to go to coming out of the huddle. They were bringing it in Middle Tennessee. If it's not there, he's going to take it himself using his legs, and he's going to get the yards on the ground.
Same thing's going to happen.
Once again,
we saw Central Connecticut State, Dungy and Central Connecticut State. He was hitting a bunch of different guys, but they weren't bringing that much pressure. Right. So, is it a result of just Middle Tennessee State? And I think Dungy can get the ball out.
Absolutely.
I think he can hit multiple receivers. But we didn't see any of Irv last week. He had 6 catches for 36 yards. We didn't see very much Jamal Custis at all. He ended up getting injured, and then once his replacement came in, Devin Butler, he hit a couple of screens there, but it was just a primary target on Steve Ishmael. So definitely like to see him spread the ball a little bit more, right?
You know what we did see though? We saw a freshman, Chris Elmore, 8 carries, 28 yards. Oh, he's fun to watch. He's fun. He's a big boy. Listed as a tight end and a fullback on the roster.
Big kid, fat guy.
I saw him walking on campus the other day. I'm walking out of a new house. He got this big smile on his face going down the stairs. I'm like, that's the fullback.
Oh, you wouldn't want to mess with him though if you saw him.
No.
Well, what about Central Michigan's offense? They have 2 wide receivers that are hurt right now. Is that going to help Syracuse?
You'd hope so. You would hope so. You know what? Actually, let's talk about Mark Chapman for a little bit. Number 3 for Central Michigan. I think he's a very talented guy. Took a 75-yard screenplay for a touchdown. Big game by him. What'd you see?
I saw him pick up to another 2nd or even 3rd gear when he broke the seam right inside that corner. He was breaking their contained player, and he got right up on the sideline, and he was inches away from getting shoelace tackled. And he got into another gear that I have not seen in a wide receiver in a very long time. And if the secondary can keep him contained, if you give Chapman free space, it's going to be ugly for the
What would you say is the difference between Middle Tennessee State's receivers versus Central Michigan's?
I think Chapman in particular, compared to Richie James, I think Chapman has more open field speed, where Richie James was a lot more shifty and more agile.
Yeah, I mean, Richie James and Ty Lee last game, they lit it up. Richie James, eight grabs, 96 yards. Ty Lee, 7 catches, 76 yards. They were all over the place. The secondary they couldn't cover them, especially for the deep ball at Stockshill. He has a cannon, no lie. He's got the cannon, threw it downfield, secondary, they couldn't keep up with that.
And don't forget, Central Michigan has the 13th passing offense ranked right now in the country. So, I mean, yeah, to talk about comparing to Middle Tennessee, this is night and day. Central Michigan, especially with Morris behind quarterback, the Michigan transfer, at quarterback, sorry. It's night and day compared to Middle Tennessee. And if Syracuse wants to win this game, I'm challenging the D-backs, the secondary.
Yeah, certainly going to be a challenge for this secondary coming up this week.
There's an interesting statistic about third downs with both these teams.
Yeah, so Central Michigan is holding their opponents to only 27% success rate on third down. John, how did Syracuse do last week against Middle Tennessee on third down?
We were 8 for 22 last week against Mid-10 on third down. Third down conversions and converting in the red zone is going to be huge this game. You need to convert in the red zone. We need to see this.
Are you not tired? You know what? I am tired of seeing field goals, to be honest. I'm tired of field goals. You know, they didn't come in.
He went 3 for 4, he missed one.
Syracuse created, I think, 4 different turnover opportunities for the offense to score, and then turn those into either a field goal or a turnover. And that's an issue for me because you want to see this team start to convert into touchdowns. Last year they had tons of yards, but only averaged 23 yards a game. That cannot happen anymore. I'm tired of seeing field goals. I want to see more.
Especially with how many returning starters on the offense.
Absolutely.
It'd be great to see them get those third down conversions and make a touchdown instead of having to go with the field goal.
We need this one here. We need this one here.
Very badly.
What are your guys' predictions? How do you think the outcome's going to be?
I've got Syracuse winning 35-21. I think that they actually correct their red zone cues. Got them actually converting on third down, 8 for 22 last week, I believe. Yeah, but I got them actually converting on third down. I think that Central Michigan's pass defense is poor enough for Syracuse to actually take advantage, and hopefully they will.
Go ahead, Ben.
I think it's going to be a tight one. 28-23, Orange. Shane Morris, we need to get to him. If we do, we can hold this down. I have a lot of confidence in Dungy. This is a big revenge game for him. Eric Dungy, play your game. Let's go Orange.
My prediction, I think it's going to be another overtime game. And then I think the Syracuse are going to come out on top. I think they're, like Julian said, they're going to take advantage of the lack of passing defense that the Chippewas have. And I think the Syracuse Orange are going to win 24-21 in overtime.
Not so sure Syracuse is going to pull this off. I have them losing by 3 this week.
That's tough.
Hard. Need some faith.
Are they going to be tied? Central Michigan, you have Central Michigan.
24,
you plan on them
I say 24,
taking a late
21.
field goal for the
Central
win?
Michigan, I'm sorry.
Monica